Hi, folks. We're Tacitus today. Your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the issue of runaway, insane levels of runaway real estate prices all across the Western world. Every country that's subject to mass migration and running in parallel to mass migration, all residential real estate, that's homes that used to be, or one time used to be places to live in and bring up your family, have now become investment playthings of international finance. So this has caused a massive increase in, colossal increase in residential real estate prices that have gone far beyond the purchasing power of the local average wage paycheck. So there was, for a long time in human history, the price of real estate, with some blips here and there, the price of real estate has reflected the local purchasing power, the average wage purchasing power of the worker, the local worker, and house prices reflected that. So, and to give you some idea of how far it's gone, a house that you could buy for $25,000 in, say, 1970, 71, 72, around there, is now worth $4 million today. So from 25,000 to $4 million in 50 years. Now, the average wage hasn't increased anywhere near that amount. So we're looking, in many cases, we're looking at hundreds of percents, many hundreds of percents of price inflation on residential real estate, home prices that have gone well beyond wages. Now, and I've used this analogy many times. Rents on even basic outer suburban apartments that are not in sort of huge demand. They're in demand, but not massive demand as inner city apartments are. Even they have gone up by close to 3 times the rate of wages. Just the rents there. So. And these are like single bed apartments I'm talking about there. Looking at even areas that were quite buoyant in the 70s that are now, say, industrial towns where all the manufacturing's gone. Even there, the rents are still going well ahead of wage growth. So wherever you look in the West, you've got this incredible inflation on residential real estate. Now, where there isn't actual demand, as in people wanting to buy or people wanting to rent, then big finance steps in to artificially pump it up so that you get this. So even I was at a small town. There's a population of just a few thousand, and they're close on 5 hours drive from the nearest major large town or city. So 5 hours drive. Public transport around there is pretty poor. One bus a week to get to the city and this sort of thing. So now the blocks of land are bigger than you'd get in downtown city or anything. But even so, the house prices there are 60% of. They're only 40% cheaper than a house, same sort of house in downtown Sydney. So now there was a time I went through that town. I was a motorbiker years ago, and I went through that town, and I was shocked that you could buy a house and land there for $2,000 or $3,000 back then. So something that's $2,000 or $3,000, in the late 1970s, is now $650,000. I mean, you're kidding me, right? And this is in the middle of fucking nowhere. They've got one sort of one small grocery store. And if you want any sort of medical specialist or services, again, you've got to drive for hours, to get there. So this is in the middle of nowhere, and yet the real estate prices don't reflect demand. Now, I've also noticed in that place, places can be for sale for 2 years or longer. But for some strange reason, no one's willing to reduce their price. They've got for sale for 2 years. Stuff there sells very, very slowly, but yet the price of land has gone through the roof. How can that be when you're in the middle of fucking nowhere? So clearly the prices don't represent demand. So we're looking at something else that's caused the price bubble. It certainly isn't demand. The people in Australia just don't have the money to pay for the real estate prices around today. And looking at houses that are for sale that go for 5, 6, 7, 8 million, which is the sort of bucks you really need to be spending these days in Sydney, at least spending these days to get a nice house and a nice tree-lined street where there are no hooligans running around and it's clean and tidy and good schools and so on nearby. You're paying multi millions, but hardly anyone. There's only a handful of people who are making that sort of money. So who's actually buying these places? Well, for the most part, it's international buyers are buying it. Chinese money is washing through by the gazillion, as in Indian Brahmin money is washing around by the gazillion. So it's offshore buyers that are propping it up. But the point I particularly wanted to make is, let's suppose the will was in place to correct this insane price increase that's gone far and well beyond the purchasing power of the local population, which as a home, a place where people live and bring up a family and that sort of thing, it should represent the local purchasing power. If it doesn't, then something's very wrong and people stop getting married, they stop having children, they stop having families, which indeed has happened all across the West. There isn't a single Western country now where through the birth rate they can replace the population. So clearly something's not quite right here. Now looking at well, what's to be done? This is the problem. So there's no magic wands here. So what can be done? Let's suppose radical surgery was applied. Okay, all property prices have to be reduced by between 50 and 75%, which is what you'd need to do to bring it back in line with purchasing power of the local worker. That would be a catastrophe. Nearly everyone paying a mortgage would be underwater almost immediately. The banks would have to foreclose. It would be a cataclysmic sort of event. That's not going to work. All right, then, well, let's look at the other end of the telescope. All right, well, if wages are not in line with real estate prices, we can't reduce real estate prices. Let's increase wages. So the average wage would have to jump by more than 3 times. So you'd be looking at average wages that would be close to $200,000 a year. That would tear the economy to pieces. That wouldn't work. Can't do that. So what else can we do? Well, we can start discouraging people from buying, and use various instruments and discourage lenders, discourage buyers, stop all international buyers and investors buying property. That would be important. Buying for properties by the Black Rocks and all this sort of thing. And there are Chinese investors that own 30, 40 waterfront properties in Sydney. Wow. And when we're talking waterfront in Sydney, we're talking they're all 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 plus million. The guy's got an investment portfolio of $300 million. Holy fuck. That all needs to stop. And also the use of nominees, the use of international Indian groups, particularly bad for this, building apartment blocks, then selling them off the plan exclusively to Indians, and that needs to all stop. So there's a whole lot of things could be done there to make sure demand is the local buyers, the local workers, the local people, and not people coming. You get the same thing. You get things in Sydney like a part-time illiterate peasant cleaner from rural China that has got a massive investment portfolio of property. He's just a nominee acting on behalf of others. Why isn't that examined? Why isn't the tax office, as I'm looking at that? Hey, you've got an income of $30,000 a year. How come you own a $20 million property portfolio? Those sort of things. So a whole lot could be done there. But the sort of the central or the material point is, how do you bring prices back to? You can't do it instantly overnight without causing terrible convulsions. But how can it be done? Well, I guess a couple of things is that people can't. It has to be that for the time being, people can't sell the house for any more than they paid for it, plus any renovations or additions they made. and the tax system needs to be used to rebate them if necessary, but otherwise they can't, a portion of that, otherwise they can't sell it for more than they paid for it, plus the added value of any renovations and things like that, any remodeling. So that would instantly stop the flipping, and it would stop the quick money trying to come in and make a quick buck out of residential real estate. If you want to do that with commercial or office real estate, that's different, but not residential real estate. So you have to stop the prices increasing. You can't sell it for more than you paid for it. Now, on top of that, the interest rate needs to be reduced and the mortgage made portable across generations, so people can sell not simply the house, but their mortgage on to another party. That new party then takes responsibility for paying the mortgage. Maybe there's a small, nominal changeover fee, those sorts of things. And the person only gets paid for the equity they have in the place, and the mortgage gets passed on. So there's not a new mortgage. So because you can have one house that's only built once, but it's bought 200 times and refinanced 200 times, that sort of thing needs to be moderated, and so that the idea of making a profit from a house needs to be stopped, and it needs to be again so that the prices stop increasing, and the mortgage can be sold on. We don't want the banks to be losing out. We don't want to be excessively profiteering either, but not losing out. And by passing on the mortgage to another generation, which could be, by the way, your own children or relatives or something like that. It doesn't have to be a stranger, but by passing that on. And I think that needs to be or some approximation of that needs to be in place for, again, 2 generations. The purpose of government is to protect the interests of its citizens, and so the government, I would argue, needs to look at, okay, we must reduce. It is vital, essential. We are obligated to bring not commercial real estate, but residential real estate, to bring it in line with the purchasing power of the average paycheck. Now, maybe exemptions need to be on prime, waterfront residences. Maybe there can be some carve-outs in some very, very limited sort of things for the super rich to play their flipping games just between each other, or an obligation that the person must have a certain income before they're even allowed to buy that property. But unless those things are done, the price of real estate will get worse. In the last 10 years, just the last 10 years, the price of land alone in Sydney has increased by close on 40%. Now, some of those, to be fair, are additional government taxes and charges, but effectively that's allegedly the demand. Now, it's not. It's an artificially pumped and inflated price. Even in towns where, not small towns, they're regional towns, but they're not small. They've got populations in 100,000 plus. Even there, the demand is very low. You can tell this by how long does it take to sell a property, how many properties are on the market. So the demand is not high, yet the prices keep on increasing in relative proportion to the most expensive real estate in the country. But it's not demand that's driving it. It's a fixed and rigged pricing game. And this is something that the government needs to stop. Now, there are other factors to consider. Some are saying, well, because interest rates have been low for a while, people's retirement savings and retirement pension programs haven't really increased because of the low interest rates. Therefore, people are, some people are using the increased value of the real estate to compensate for the reduced or lost value or going sideways of their pension plan, their retirement plan. Therefore, if house prices stop, then people can't retire and so. But that's not the material point here. The material point is that no matter where you look at it, you can move. All you can do is move the problem around. Is there? So okay, we fucked your retirement plan. So now you have the real estate prices going out of control. So that's a problem that's simply been moved around. The banks can't make money on interest rate because interest rates are low. So we have to let them make money by inflated mortgage rates or mortgage amounts. But again, the problem has been moved around, not solved. So until the mindset comes along, we need to solve this problem, not simply hope it'll go away, because all the inputs and all the infrastructure around massive residential real estate price increases are all still in place. In fact, they're getting worse. So if it's not addressed now, then the situation will be that people will be living in tents and caravans all over the place, and no one's going to own a fucking house except for like BlackRock. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.